Well, state leaders consider doing without a lieutenant governor. I'd like to think that I gave them the idea 10 years ago. We went more than a year without a lieutenant governor. Do we need a lieutenant governor?
You know, that's, I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Well, I'd like to say that I planted the idea, but as we're about to show you, politicians will say whatever they think is in their best interest in that particular moment. For some background, in Florida, the lieutenant governor makes $125,000 a year, typically has his or her own staff, and has no statutory duties or responsibilities beyond succeeding the governor in case of a vacancy, carrying out the duties the governor may assign, whatever they may be, and serving on some boards of some kind. They don't generally make news unless they get caught up in controversy, like Governor Chris' sidekick, Jeff Kottkamp, who ran up more than $400,000 in state travel bills, and Governor Scott's sidekick, Jennifer Carroll. She quit after a company she promoted got raided and charged with gambling.
The smartest decision I made was pick Jennifer Carroll.
Well, Scott eventually named Carlos Lopez Quintero as her replacement. And that's who DeSantis planned to face in a U.S. Senate race back in 2016. So back then, in that moment, DeSantis did not want to say we really need someone like the man he planned to run against. Do we need a lieutenant governor?
You know, that's, I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
And then 3 years later, he runs for governor, picks Jeanette Nunez as his running mate to be lieutenant governor, and then changes his thoughts about the position. And in a really fascinating moment, listen to how DeSantis justifies it by saying that his prior response was motivated by his own political ambition or what he thought was in his best interest at that time. But now, does Florida need a lieutenant governor?
Well, look, I mean, I think at that time I was running against somebody who, potentially running against somebody who was serving the position, so there was a little bit of a political back and forth.
And then he goes on to say that having a lieutenant governor is important.
But I think at the end of the day, having a lieutenant governor who's actively engaged in the administration, I think is important, and I want Jeanette to be actively engaged.
Incidentally, in a different part of that interview, DeSantis also ripped his adversaries who had suggested that he was racist.
People are sick of being told, oh, you're a racist because you disagree with left-wing policies. It's nonsense.
Which led me to a follow-up question that relates both to the office of lieutenant governor and how politicians of all stripes tend to say whatever they think is in their best interest in the moment. Your own running mate, as you know, also accused President Trump of supporting the KKK, supporting the Ku Klux Klan, calling him the biggest con man in America.
She was supporting Senator Rubio at the time. It was a very hot and heavy primary. I don't really do social media, but I know a lot of people have said things and popped off. Sometimes you wish you could have it back.
And that brings us to Lieutenant Governor Nunez resigning as lieutenant governor to take a job as a university leader. And Governor DeSantis faces the decision of who to name as a replacement, which is politically now tricky under the circumstances.
Because the governor has suggested that he wants to have some influence over who the next governor of Florida is, right? He wants to be able to make an endorsement or something like that.
Well, yeah, whoever the governor picks becomes the person that DeSantis decides is best suited to succeed him if he leaves office early, which of course could raise the stock of that person in the race to succeed him in the next election should he or she run. And that may be tricky because picking his wife would raise concerns of nepotism, and that's who he appears to want to succeed him.
She would do better than me. Like, there's no question about that. That would happen.
So DeSantis now plans to name a new lieutenant governor after the legislative session, a session that happens to be considering plans to eliminate the position of lieutenant governor, which, of course, if passed, could impede the stock of whoever the governor picks after session politically.
The bill will replace them with this new sort of the Commissioner of Government Efficiency.
Now, if passed and signed, voters would also have to weigh in on that and decide whether to replace one position with another that has more defined responsibilities. Specifically, a new commissioner focused on finding ways to save taxpayers money. a plan which happens to be brewing the same time Republican leaders in the legislature are also raising concerns about spending in the DeSantis administration and beyond, including 7 agency heads who spent $160,000 in travel over the course of 2 years. So taken all together, they all appear to be examples of what the governor called a little political back and forth. And that may all provide some context for the shifts in positions and priorities and the timing of what they say and when they say it, of course, and how it all relates to money, power, and politics.